Congratulations! You have found a runestone!
Gauntlet Dark Legacy. This is a game that I remember seeing once upon a time all the way back on Video and Arcade Top 10. Once again, dating me instantly. I'm old, guys. But I'm not sure it was necessarily this particular game. I think it might have actually been the N64 predecessor, Gauntlet Legends. Now the nice thing is, this is actually more or less an expanded port of that game. So, you know, either way it's the same game. Which means getting to play this kind of vindicates a little bit of my own childhood. It's one of those games I saw, thought it looked awesome, could never find it, here it is. Now the story is about an evil mage known as Garm. Norse for rag, look it up, it's true. They just misspelled it in here. He ended up using some runestones, summoned a demon. Demon kind of stepped on him and hid the runestones away, and now you gotta collect them to try and save the world from both the demon and Garm himself, which is why you get to pick your characters of choice. Now, like I said, this is kind of an expanded port of the original Gauntlet Legends, which, again, I've never played, but as I understand, had 4 playable characters. This version expands it to 8, plus a bunch of hidden unlockable characters, doubling the roster. Not too bad, game. Not too bad. And each of these characters has their own sort of statistics and abilities. For example, characters such as the elf might be really, really fast, but has the defensive abilities of a wet newspaper. Whereas the warrior's going to be a little bit beefier, but perhaps a little less apt at magic, and perhaps a little slower. Each of these characters has their own different styles, and that's great. However, we start getting into the problems, and oh boy, as much as I like this game, I got a few. Your characters are limited to your memory card and your save file, and that sounds okay on paper. However, what they don't tell you is while your characters are limited to your save file and your profile on your memory card, each of them is set up independently. So if you start your save file, say you pick the Valkyrie like I did, and you get to like level 10, realize you don't like this character all that much and you want to try like the warrior, well guess what, you're starting back at level 1, even though your profile still has all your experience. Now, I've seen lots of games do this, and it's a way to expand your replayability. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the fact is you're going to be going through levels, and later on, once you're unlocking all these hidden characters that are hidden amongst the later levels, you basically have to go back to level 1 to use them over, and that just feels like mindless busy work. This is totally a preference thing, but I would have preferred to, you know, have my levels transfer from character to character, especially considering that once again, they are locked to my profile. So I've only got one character here, but I think I've got a pretty good idea what this game's about. And what this game is about is trying to make it Gauntlet, the epic next-gen, relative to the time, adventure. And I think it works on a lot of levels, but the fact that it's also trying to be Gauntlet is what hinders it the most. Now, the first thing that I noticed about the gameplay to this is it's really focused on collecting things. You can't unlock any of the playable worlds until you collect X number of crystals. And there's like 8 different colors of crystals, and a varied amount is required depending on the color. So let's just hypothetically say you have all the crystals to unlock the next world. That's all well and good, but do you have that particular chunk of the hub world unlocked? Because if you didn't, well, go out there and collect some gold things to unlock a door so that you can unlock your world. Yeah, this game is padded and requires you to collect some stuff, and if you're playing well and you're just actively collecting things as you go, there shouldn't be too much of a requirement to grind or anything, but at the same time, not only is it padded based on just collecting stuff, it's fractally padded. You've got more than one door that requires different things to open up just so that you can use your initial things to open up a door. That is baffling. Okay, so we're in these worlds, we're running around, we're collecting things. Enemies are spawning out of spawners that you can destroy, similar to original Gauntlet, and they're slowly swarming you. Okay, well, they're not swarming me too much, and that might be because I'm playing on a simpler difficulty for the sake of getting through the game faster, but that might also be a hardware limitation. Maybe they just couldn't put too many characters on screen without slowing down too bad. Here's where things kind of get a little bit weird. It's definitely trying to be Gauntlet. There's lots of tight corridors where enemies like to flood in and try and chase you down and swarm you, but at the same time, there's lots of open areas that feel like they weren't really built for Gauntlet's mechanics, and the game feels more like it's trying to be a wider, more explorative area. Because another one of its biggest mechanics is hidden things, especially switches. Oftentimes you'll find switches behind walls that are false, even though you're not necessarily able to tell. Seriously, this game is really bad at conveying stuff like that. And if you hit the wall enough, it'll reveal the switch, which will usually allow you to progress or show you like a secret little thing that'll allow you to collect a crystal to advance or whatever. It works well, and I do appreciate how much hidden content there is, especially considering the fact that oftentimes one hidden switch will lead to another hidden switch, will lead to another hidden switch, which will lead to some kind of payout in terms of treasure or something. I appreciate that. It definitely satisfies the explorer in me. I love exploring games. But on the other hand, you've got oftentimes those tight corridors that feel just out of place comparatively. Like I said, it's trying to be its own epic adventure game while also trying to cram Gauntlet in there, which is kind of diametrically opposed. Gauntlet was a game designed for the arcades that was, well, designed to take your quarters as fast as possible by swarming you with enemies. Whereas this game feels closer to an actual home experience where they want you to actively go out, build your character, explore the world, and it feels like it's not trying to hamstring you too much, up until you get to all those weird corridors that just feel out of place. I know I'm lingering on that, but a lot of gameplay concepts here feel diametrically opposed. Now, you might be asking, why do you want to explore these little hidden nooks and crannies in the open world bits? Well, first of all, there's items you need to collect in order to advance, as we've discussed. There's also lots of little items you need to collect to expand your inventory. Stuff like phoenixes, which allow you to fire a secondary shot out of your character. Stuff like growth, which makes you bigger, which makes you a bigger target, but I think you do more damage. I'm not entirely sure. You get multi-shots, you get all sorts of crazy little power-ups. And a lot of them tend to feel like you want to hold on to them more than actually experiment with them, which is kind of an arcadey mentality. Oftentimes you'll run into the character Death, and he's only defeatable if you have an anti-death item, magic, which kills him instantly, or you hit him, I'm not joking, 100 times. Have fun with that. But that's the sort of mentality this game goes with, is it provides you with all these items, but then it actively tells you not to use them until you absolutely need to. That feels very, very arcadey, but kind of out of place in a game that gives you health pickups every few feet so that you're never really in danger of dying. In fact, the greatest threat death actually brings to you is the ability to drain your experience, and in turn bring your experience to a negative level, which, yes, de-levels you. I don't like that concept at all. Take my experience, but let it cap at 0, please. Speaking of experience, for whatever reason, even though there is a leveling and an experience system in here, there's no real way to actively track it. Basically, whenever you level in-game, it'll say, with really bad voice acting, your character has gained a new level. Okay, but how much until my next level? How much experience do I get from killing this enemy? Actually, I know I don't get any experience because I've leveled midway through attacking an enemy without it killing anything. I said this briefly once before, this game is bad at conveying things, and it really is. It's hard to tell when you're going to level, it's hard to tell what sort of experience you're getting for doing anything, it's hard to tell what you necessarily need to do in certain situations. And one of the biggest things I've noticed about this game just being bad at telling you stuff is sometimes it's entirely damn near impossible to tell if you're actually hurting your opponent. Because some enemies flash when you hit them, and some of them have like a recoil animation, and that's all well and good, but some do neither. And you just have to keep thwacking them over and over and over and hope that you kill them. That's atrocious. Going back to items for just a second, items are terrible to use in terms of control. Like, the control in general has a lot of issues. But to go through your inventory, you have to press up on the D-pad. You know that thing under the control stick no one ever used? Yep. Then you gotta press left on the D-pad to select what you want through a scrolling menu that you have no way to scroll back from, so if you've missed an item you wanted, you have to go all the way through the menu again. Phenomenal. And then you have to press down to cancel the menu, up to use the item, which that's already the thing that engages the menu. That's kind of awkward. And I mean, if you're really committed to using the D-pad, why is the right D-pad direction not used for anything? You could have had that for use item, or you could have had that to cycle through the menu the opposite way so you don't have to cycle through it twice. It's a small quality of life thing that can really affect your item usage, and like I said, you don't want to be using items too much, except in the clutch. So when you really want to use them, you don't want to be fumbling with the terrible little D-pad trying to get the item you want, all while you're probably ignoring the control stick and getting murdered. And if we're still complaining about controls, and trust me I am, blocking in this game is awful. Okay, so block is labeled to the B button. Simple enough, you know, you press B, you block. Now in most games, blocking would then be relegated to how long you hold the button down, right? Like, you hold the button down for 5 seconds, you're blocking for that 5 seconds until you let go. Here, the moment you press the button, you are blocking for about half a second, and then you're not blocking. And holding down the button does nothing, so blocking is actually ridiculously tough, especially if you're running into an enemy that has a combo. Because trying to block, and there's a bit of a delay, which is great, means that you're going to get hit by that initial hit, and even if you block it, you're going to get hit by everything else in its combo. Maybe I just didn't get the hang of it, but man, that blocking is rough. That said, everything else about the controls pretty much works for what you need it to do. A attacks, and if you hold it down for whatever reason, you constantly attack. Seriously, B button. Take some lessons from A button. That's why you're the small one, and that's why no one likes you. Magic is relegated to the X button, which at least means you're probably not going to be using it trying to hit the A button, but it's still a little bit awkward. Y button is a heavy attack, which is a little bit slower than your main attack, but presumably does more damage? Like I said, conveyance, not exactly the best here. And if you hold down A and B at the same time, and this is a little bit awkward, when your power bar is maxed, you can use a super attack, which is really bloody cathartic because it basically clears the room if you aim it right. Seriously, love that move, keep that move is perfect. Oh yeah, and speaking of items, there are special hidden items in every world. Rune stones, which are used to complete the game presumably, secret areas which unlock the hidden characters I mentioned, and also legendary items. Now these legendary items, I think they're actually called legacy weapons or something, but they're special items that when you enter a world that has them, they give you a quick pre-rendered cutscene to see kind of what you need to do to unlock them. And it's important because these allegedly make bosses easier. Now the thing about it is they're not placed in the same world as the boss. The first boss's legendary item is actually an item that doesn't work until like the 4th or 5th or 6th boss, and you don't actually find the item that's useful on him until way later in the game. In fact, the actual structure of the game seems to be go through the first 4 levels of any world, collect all the crystals, move on, don't fight the boss, and then keep proceeding through those worlds, ignoring the bosses until you have the legacy weapons, or the legendary weapons, or whatever. That's weird. That is just strange that they'd actively tell you to ignore the boss and go forward. And the thing is, in my time playing this game, when I fought 3 different bosses, one of them I used a legendary weapon on because it had an attack that was basically undodgeable and unblockable, which was awesome. And when I did use the legendary item on him, the first time I used it, nothing happened. Yeah, this game is a little bit buggy like that. The second time, it seemed to take his health down to half, however, it still took forever to kill him. So I'm not sure if the game just wanted me to grind a lot more or like have 4 people playing with me because it is a 4-player game. It was unintentionally, I think, a very stressful, intense situation, but it wasn't necessarily an enjoyable one to be in. Now conversely, the first boss and the third boss I fought without the legendary weapon. The first boss was actually pretty much entirely fine, because you could dodge all of its attacks. He just took forever to kill. Again, I might need to have grinded, but seriously, he can dodge every single attack. He's not hard to bring down at like level 10. The third boss, however, like I said, this game's a little bit buggy. But I like things about this game. I love the world, I love exploring it, I love the characters, I love the bosses, I love all the secrets, and I love building up my character and gaining new abilities, gaining new experiences, and as you build your character, you get like different visual upgrades and power-ups to your character. That's fantastic. But for everything I like about the gameplay, it feels like it does something wrong. The corridors feel diametrically opposed to the game's initial design. The game itself feels like it's too reliant on its secrets and hidden moments. In fact, I actually got stuck for an hour on one level looking for a secret that actually wasn't there, simply because the way the camera and lighting worked, it just didn't look like there was any place to go. Oh, yeah, the camera in this game. You have no control over it, and it's balls, and it's really hard to actually see where you're going in this game. While not necessarily the best, there's a lot of enjoyment here, and it's a fun sort of game that's trying to be Gauntlet in a more epic fashion. But that's the problem. It's also trying to be Gauntlet. And Gauntlet really wasn't a game designed for consoles or just sitting around and having fun. It was a game that was trying to take your money from you. As I said previously, this is kind of an existing expansion of a game that existed well before it, and it feels just old. Like, there's so many more quality of life changes they could have made that they just didn't. That's really my biggest problem with this game. It's just, there's so many little things that feel like simple quality of life changes that could have made this game just so much better. Now, the presentation to Gauntlet Dark Legacy is kind of hit or miss. Visually, it's not too bad. Each of the characters looks unique and interesting, and I like how every area of the game sort of has the same 3 enemy archetypes, but they try and change them up to be more appropriate for the areas. That's really nice. But the character models themselves and the animations just feel kind of clunky at best and just broken at worst. Like, seriously, I did just say this game kind of feels like an old game that's been repurposed, and how this game looks definitely attributes to that as well. And even though there are a lot of characters, half of them are basically just reskins or slight modifications of existing ones, which kind of sucks. Audio-wise is probably the high point, and even then it has a lot of issues. The soundtrack, amazing. It's got that sort of medieval gothic horror sort of thing going on. Like, a lot of the music in this game would feel really fitting in, like, say, a Castlevania game. Like, the music in this game is just tremendous. I gotta find the soundtrack to this game. But the voice acting is atrocious, and the sound effects are entirely stock, and most of them feel really out of place. As great as the soundtrack is for establishing ambience and setting tone for the world, everything else feels like it's trying to take it away, leading to kind of a lukewarm presentation at best, and that's really unfortunate. Now, if you want a copy of Gauntlet Dark Legacy on the GameCube, oh my god, this game is pricey. Okay, so pretty much every other version of this game sits at about $30 complete. Disc-only cheapest one I'm seeing right now for GameCube is $100. Wow, this game is pricey. I just looked at a GameCube box copy and took a look at some of the box art, and some of it seems to indicate that the GameCube version has some, like, exclusive stuff. So maybe that's why this is, like, the most wanted version, or maybe it's just rare, but either way, I've got to give a colossal shout out to my girlfriend for trading this to the show. I know she was quite fond of this game, and I can say I am too. I'm just kind of disappointed with all the little things that kind of bug me about it. Like, seriously, there's so much about this game that I want to love, and for everything there is, there's something that makes me want to hate it too, and that's a damn shame. There is a lot of content in Gauntlet Dark Legacy, and if you're an old school fan of Gauntlet, you might enjoy this, but you might also be put off by the fact that it's not closer to old school Gauntlet. And if you're looking for sort of a bigger, more epic adventure game, like, say, The Legend of Zelda or something, you're probably going to be disappointed with how close to Gauntlet this is. Kind of like I said, it's trying to be the old school with the new school, and the two are kind of diametrically opposed just by virtue of the fact one is more focused on consoles, whereas the other takes an arcadey mentality, and the two are really at odds here. But, you know, this game is definitely a lot of fun. As much as I know it sounds like I'm being entirely negative about this game, it really is a blast to play. It does feel kind of samey, but, you know, that was Gauntlet. And if you're looking for Gauntlet, this is definitely an interesting update to the game. And, you know, I just like it. Yeah, I'm annoyed with pretty much everything about it, but at the same time, I absolutely freaking love this game. Now, that said, I'm also damn certain I'm not the kind of core audience for this kind of game, seeing as I'm someone who focuses entirely on the single-player experience. But still, one player, it's challenging, it's fun, and it is a grand old time. If you can get a copy of this, maybe not the GameCube version because it's so ungodly expensive, and you can look past the flaws this game has, which, admittedly, there are many, it's a pretty damn good game. But at the same time, all those flaws do leave something of a dark legacy.